Whoever you are, whatever you're doing, why ever for, hello. Today we're think-abouting opinions, which are things that we all know everybody loves. I thought we'd start with some mental stretches, so just for fun, I would like you to consider the following claims. Number 1. It is true that light travels at 299,792,458 meters per second in a vacuum. Number 2. It is true that gold is more valuable than tin. Number 3. It is true that the Mekong River flows through 6 different countries. And lastly, number 4, it is true that rotting corpses smell disgusting. You may have noticed that these things are all true, but they are not all true in the same way. Number 1, the speed of light, is a scientific truth. It will be the same everywhere in the universe and could be discovered independently by a sufficiently advanced alien civilization, though they'd probably use different units. Statement number 2, about the value of different metals, is a bit more circumstantial. It's an economic truth, born of the relative abundance of these elements on Earth. Such things could be predicted, but not because value is a fundamental property of anything. Statement 3, about the Mekong River, is an intra-subjective fact, as countries only exist in the minds of people who collectively agree where political borders lie. No extraterrestrial, no matter how advanced, could look at Earth and evaluate this claim without consulting a human-made map. Similarly, claim number 4, about rotting corpses, no doubt attracts a voting majority among human beings, but only because we haven't evolved from detritivores, at least not recently. There's nothing objective about the emotion of disgust. Hyenas and blowflies happen to find the aroma of rotting corpses irresistible. Now consider this statement. It is true that murder is wrong. Where does it fit? Some would place moral truths like this in category 1, believing them to be as objective and irrefutable as the laws of physics. I myself would lean towards putting murder, rape, torture, and the exploitation of others into camp number 4. Moral disgust, in my view, is a widespread cross-cultural product of human socio-biological evolution. For this reason, no other species on Earth, or anywhere else in the cosmos, can be expected to share these intuitions by default. There are probably several other kinds of truth, though the distinction usually only matters when people hit a disagreement. In such cases, truth seems to be in the eye of the beholder, or the brain of the beholder. In its attempt to unite all warring truths under one flag, structuralism tries to play peacemaker. It asserts that the ultimate truth, capital U, capital T, if there is such a thing, emerges from relationships between people, their actions, thoughts, opinions, and feelings. Vast interconnecting webs of human ideas form large-scale structures, which unfold according to objective and unchanging laws. It's a bold, beautiful, and bonkers hypothesis because the thinking inescapably consumes itself. Like someone trying to voice an opinion piece about holding opinions, it all gets a bit meta. If our perception of the world is something passed down, arriving through cultural filters that determine what it's even possible for us to think, structuralism itself must have emerged from this process. When you dismantle structuralism using structuralism, the house of cards evaporates. Now, I don't wish to cause a panic, but might our ability to use any mental reasoning at all be vulnerable to the same criticism? Because the ability to reason evolved through natural processes, we can't use reason to prove its own trustworthiness. We can, however, use reason to generate useful results. Likewise, claims that we may be living in a dream world as a brain in a vat, hooked to the matrix, or hallucinating reality from inside a padded cell, can't be entirely refuted. These solipsistic challenges can be disliked, but not disproven. We're left having to deal with the world as we perceive it, according to our fundamental inability to achieve certainty in any ultimate sense. To cope with this absurd predicament, we should throw out as many ungrounded claims as possible. Ideally, we'd presuppose nothing, though realistically, most of us end up embracing just two irreducible brute facts. These are that some vague approximation of external reality really does exist, and second, that our experience of that reality is reliable enough for reason to be more helpful than mere impulse. Both of these brute facts, or axioms, articles of faith, if you like, or tooth fairies in cosmology, are fairly easy to defend because we tend to become quickly and acutely aware whenever they let us down. Accepting this pair of impenetrable presuppositions means that the laws of logic, sometimes called the laws of thought, constitute the greatest level of certainty that anyone can reach. Problems and contradictions start to pile up whenever we assume anything beyond them. For example, if we invoke something supernatural or metaphysical to explain why there are logical absolutes, or where these come from, additional layers of presuppositions have to be made. Each of them gets more wiggly than the last. Despite commendable efforts, nobody in history has been able to demonstrate that logic, in any possible universe, should require anything beyond itself to work. While we wait for a better philosophy to come along and tidy things up, Enlightenment attitudes like reason over emotion and deduction over induction should direct our opinions. At least the consequential ones. If logic is as true as it gets, or maximally true, anything derived from it must be reasonably true. Logic compels us to adjust our beliefs to fit the evidence. So science, as a path to greater understanding, should continue to be amorously pursued. Notice the word should keeps popping up. You're probably thinking that words like should and ought are value judgments. And you'd be right. You're good like that. These words express opinions that both exaggerate our free will and the certainty of our claims. Rational justifications will always be required and ought to be requested to keep such opinions in check. Here's why, to save you asking. To mooch around, chatting to folk, is to realize that people only get one set of infinitely variable cultural parameters which flavor all of their thoughts and actions. All any of us can reasonably claim is that our knowledge, anything we can justify belief in, comes from that one rather limited perspective. This doesn't mean that nothing is true, that everyone has their own truth, or that all truths should be regarded as equal. As I hoped to demonstrate in my opening, facts of river promiscuity and the scent of corpses show that reality isn't as plainly obvious as we like to imagine. Thanks to logic, that unsurpassable gold standard, science's practical and theoretical effectiveness has dribbled out from millennia of hellish confusion. Reliable predictions are a godsend, allowing us to evaluate fundamental truth claims and separate the probably right from the not very right at all. Even if the world is just a stunningly detailed computer simulation, it's one governed by laws that are consistent and stable enough for us to unpack. But predictions are not the goal of science, just a tool in the box. Science seeks to understand the world by explaining what we observe. Because science grounds its own reliability, begging the question, it joins structuralism in falling depressingly short of ultimate truth. Capital U, capital T. Science says a lot about what can be demonstrated, less about what actually exists, and precious little about what we ought to do with this knowledge. Words like should and ought remain stubbornly opinionated. I remember teaching my sister, once, how to play chess. True story. Not content with watching us play nicely together, my dad interfered, suggesting the point of chess is to get your pieces into diagonal lines across the board. The unintended lesson that I took from this is that what constitutes a good move depends entirely on what you're trying to do. There are many things that you can do with a chess set. Nothing is right or wrong, good or bad, unless both players can agree on the rules and the goal. For the same reason, we can only say murder is wrong once we agree that, happiness and flourishing are things to aim for. I can only claim a restaurant, or an appliance, or an outfit is good once I know what your criteria are. These feelings have no objectivity. They can't be discovered, they can only be decided. Mistaking the things we all agree on for reality is like confusing the map for the place. Converging opinions allow people to navigate the world, though they are no reflection of the world itself. Now, take a look at your beautiful self. With each passing moment, you experience a rapidly changing carnival of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that vary wildly depending on the social context you're in and the options available to you. Even so, separation, deconstruction, and analysis of your perceptions grants a more or less stable personal identity. In a very similar fashion, societies don't need certainty, clarity, or perfect unity to function. It's convenient when everyone agrees about everything, but it's not essential, nor durable, and probably not very healthy. Just as maths emerges from the laws of logic and plays a central role in science, science was itself born of philosophy, and philosophy may owe its existence to art. Like maths, science, and philosophy, art too is just a tool. It highlights errors, clears confusion, reduces misery, challenges preconceptions, adjusts values, bolsters arguments, educates opinions, understands emotions, heightens awareness, expands empathy, crystallizes morals, and enriches our lived experience. There's really not much it doesn't do. It's a good tool. And like science, art's real purpose may be explanatory, offering a more intelligent and considered view of the world. But there's no such thing as a free exhibition. Because art is ultimately subjective, its power can be turned against us to misguide and spread erroneous beliefs. You see, art requires a frame. The skill of an artist lies in taking bits of the world and framing them in a scrumptiously meaningful way. An artist, then, is someone who creates a kind of illusion. There is limitless joy in conjuring the illusion of meaning from a meaningless universe, though doing so makes the truth even more valuable. Humans lust for truth, not because it can ever be objective, but because it saves us from a world of pure illusion, speculation, imagination, and rampant opinions. Clearly, art and truth provide invaluable services just by opposing each other. Denying reality with deliberate lies or attractive stories might make someone's life more tolerable, but distortions incur a cost. As long as people are in danger of misunderstanding themselves, misinterpreting others, and holding unrealistic expectations, our subjectivity will continue to thwart us. As knowledge of the world comes from observations, experiments, and logical reasoning, so human values are sculpted from our most basic needs and interests. We feel fulfilled when we act in the service of these most agreeable of goals. And, being social by nature, humans also find subjective purpose and meaning through relationships, just as a structuralist might predict. However, very different life experiences, like honing different artistic or athletic talents, create inequality in people's opinions. If we have a medical issue, we should consult a doctor. The word should here assumes that we agree that experience and education improve a person's ability to make accurate judgments. An expert's opinion, then, may simply be one that is somewhat less subjective. A 5-year-old, who's only ever seen one movie, The Princess Bride, may insist that it's the best movie ever made. A professional film critic might disagree, though they'd be wrong in this case. Clearly, different opinions carry different weights, as what applies to children and industry specialists applies to all of us. This logical inference suggests a few red flags to avoid when evaluating someone's point of view. Novelty isn't great, as first impressions can't teach us much. Sentimentality should come with a discount, as personal emotional connections are fertile soil for biases. Inconsistency is an absolute howler, as sound judgments will survive different contexts and reference frames. Tradition should raise a skeptical eyebrow, as having done something for hundreds of years is no justification on its own to keep doing it. We owe it to ourselves, and to all humans yet to be born, to ruthlessly audit the status quo we inherited. Epistemological awareness big picture reasoning and a good-humoured readiness to undersell yourself make much better guides. Although all of this is just my opinion. Hardly humanity's straightest timber, I think you'll agree. With a renewed confidence that doubt and uncertainty are inescapable, we're ready to investigate how much power, if any, people have over their actions. Next episode, we'll be wrestling, subduing, and attempting to interrogate our own self-control.